All right. We are live in the Weather Center, Friday Night Live, 8 p.m. I'm not going to lie, I literally just clocked out of work and just punched live and jumped in. There's no transition. That's how much the day has been just kind of flying by, guys. How are we doing tonight, though? How are we doing? How's everybody doing? We're going to talk some tropics. We're going to get into the weather pattern. We're going to talk big picture and narrow it down. As a matter of fact, I want to see, while we're here on the stream getting started and saying hello to everybody, did that thing develop already? Nope, not yet. Although we haven't gotten an 8 p.m. advisory on it just yet. Or maybe they're going to do an 11 p.m. Or actually, I guess technically that is 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So, I'm surprised it hasn't formed up yet. We'll probably see something tomorrow. All right, let's say hello to everybody. So who we got? I see Devil Charger throwing a comment in 2 hours before the live stream. Thank you very much for that. Good stuff. Avril, good night. Good to see you again. Kevin, good to see you. Carmen, welcome in. One of my favorites, as always. One of my recurring viewers watching from Jamaica. Very good, Kevin. Brian, what's up? Mike's weather page won't let me talk in the chat, but anyways, it's Friday night. Let's start the show off right, ladies and gentlemen. Zenful, welcome in. Let's hype some weather. Yep, we're going to hype up tonight. We don't have a lot to hype, but you know what? We're going to try to hype either way. Woo! Gabriel embracing his inner Ric Flair. I love it. Mick and Marley, welcome in. Weather trackers, I heard a lot about the storm going to make landfall in Jamaica today. What do you think? I don't know about today. Not today. Or do you mean that you heard a lot about it today? Because I was going to say, we still have a little bit going on down to the south. It's not going to be there just yet. Samuel, welcome in. Ramesh, hello. Malachi, good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a little bit, buddy. Nancy, good evening. Happy Full Hunter's Moon. Ooh, I got to listen to that song after this. That song's in the end credits of Halloween Kills. It's very, very fitting for this time of year. We're right on the brink of Halloween. I can't believe that, guys. For our folks over here in the United States who celebrate Halloween, that is wild. It's the last Friday of October already. Where the heck did it go? I feel like it was just yesterday. I did that little skit for Michael Myers and all that, and I'm going to try to drop something tomorrow. I've been so busy. I haven't been able to don the mask and put anything else out for you guys, but I think I'm going to drop a little nugget of something to let y'all know that the Halloween forecast is coming around the corner because, shucks, we already have, what is it now, 4 more days? Technically 3 more days until Halloween, and then Halloween night. Let's see who else we got in here. Linda, Mike, what's going on? Hype for some live stream action? There we go. Hit the like button. Yes, please. Janice, welcome in, sweetie. Thank you for joining us. Earl in St. Kitts, live and lively. I like that. Live and lively. I'm going to start using that. Chad, welcome. Thomas, welcome in. Not a lot on my tablet. That's why I don't join a lot. That's okay, Malachi. Thank you for joining in either way. Innocencia, welcome in. Good evening. Thank you for always leaving the lovely comments on my videos, whether it be good evening, good morning, etc. I always appreciate that. Very nice to say hello. All right, so first things first, guys, I'm going to have to cut the live stream a little early tonight. As you all are aware, I have family over, so we're going to be watching Five Nights at Freddy's this evening. We're going to have some fun. We're streaming it on Peacock, so I'm not in a tremendous rush. We're just going to watch it out in the living room, have food ready and whatnot, but I wasn't going to leave the Tropics talk high and dry. Number 2. I have notes here. So it looks like right now I'm still waiting on a couple other people working in the background to find out who it is that we could specifically send some stuff. But Direct Relief looking for donations for Hurricane Otis. A company or a franchise by the name of Direct Relief is one of the main entities I'm thinking of going through for starting off the fundraiser here very soon. Also, another one called Global Giving. I did a lot of homework as I could today. They've been having me work long shifts. That's why I literally got out of work like 60 seconds before going live, clocked down, just jumped into the Weather Center hot seat. But in between all that, I've been researching heavily, and these are 2 organizations that have very high ratings across the globe. Very, very high ratings in terms of just how reputable and trustworthy they are. Lots of different testimonies, and both of those pages allow me to make a fundraiser team, if you will, right on their website. So I'm thinking maybe if, the few folks I have locally working behind the scenes for me to find somebody local in terms of a way to liaise to get the fundraiser and our donations going for Mexico out there, we might go through one of those entities. So that's either Direct Relief or Global Giving. For those of you watching, if you want to take a look at that if you want to take a look at their information online and get a feel for who it is that we may be collecting donations for. I've also had a couple of brilliant ideas from a few of you guys as well. Somebody mentioned, I forget who it was, forgive me, I've been so scatterbrained over the last 48 hours. Somebody mentioned that on these live streams, we should do like a live stream solely for donations. If I had merchandise, I would want to do that too. That'd be great to do a limited run of merchandise. I don't know what it would be. My cat Willow riding a hurricane or something like that. I don't know. My big head hyping something up. I don't know. Something funny, but, you know, that's one of the idea, or a few of the ideas that I've been brainstorming. And I really appreciate you guys contributing ideas as we go throughout the, you know, the process of trying to spin this up. No pun intended. But let's get into the chat because I see folks are talking. Watching from Belize, welcome in, Wilfred. Thanks. Hello from Jamaica, Shani. What I meant to say is that I heard a lot today about the storm going to... Yeah, no, that's what I figured you meant. You heard today a lot about what's coming. That makes sense. Jamaica in the building. Very glad to have you join in. Is anything going on in Barbados? You know, you guys have a lot of rainfall and a lot of excess moisture around there, but I don't think it's going to be... There's not going to be any storms, organized storms coming up down that direction near Barbados or most of the Lesser Antilles, if not all of them. I know that a couple of iterations of the GFS wanted to try to push a hurricane east towards you guys, but that's not going to happen. In fact, pay no attention to what 12 and 18Z GFS are doing long range, because I don't know if you guys saw, but after we get what looks to be the low trying to spin up down here at the beginning of November moving this way, there's another random hurricane, I'm using air quotes, that forms here and goes like this. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know how there's going to be a random second hurricane, or I should say a third storm, brewing up and moving all lopsided and whatnot. So... you don't have to sweat in that department. Hello from Cayman. Good to see you. We had up to knee-high flooding the other day. I heard about that, yeah, because you have just this huge interaction between these two air masses out here funneling up moisture from the deep south equator region. You have the Pacific monsoonal trough right in through here. You have the East Pac fully active and fully online with tropical development, tropical moisture. And because we're sandwiched between these two high height centers, you see one right in through here that's still spinning over the southeast Gulf of Mexico. And then we have this giant entity out here, a nice subtropical ridge. What's happening is the confluent flow around both of these is creating a tremendous amount of moisture. And it doesn't help if you guys look really closely right in through here. Here's that upper low that we were talking about last week. It made its way down. There's our little cold pocket. You can see it's spinning plain as day out there. It just doesn't have a lot of moisture with it because that subtropical high, or that modified ridge has given it a lot of dry air in the center. But the wind flow around that, coupled with the wind flow around this massive high height center, and the fact that we have the convergent wind flow off of one of them button up against the other, is just, it's creating a whole lot of rainfall and a whole lot of just moisture channeling all the way up through the central Caribbean, the eastern Caribbean, up into the Atlantic, closer to Bermuda, and where Tammy has, quote, reformed. I use air quotes again because I don't personally believe Tammy reformed. I think Tammy was always there. They kind of jumped the gun going post-tropical on it. And I think based on, even though the satellite depiction definitely looked a little post-tropical, if you guys were going to revive it in 24 hours, you should have just left it on the chart. There has to be a way that they could have finagled keeping it on the chart, because now we have so many people mentioning how Tammy disappeared and all of a sudden it came back. What's happening? And it's like, no, it's not that it came back. It's always been there. It's always been out there in the same spot pretty much. It hasn't really moved. Let's see. Is Jamaica okay? Will there be a storm? So, I mean, it looks like there could be something trying to come out of all this leftover moisture just bubbling over the southern Caribbean. But truth be told, I think because of this upper level feature that we have, let me clear my ink. It's getting way too congested out there. All right, so there is something that's expected to come wandering out of the southern Caribbean right in through there with all this residual moisture from daytime thunderstorm activity, the convergent flow from our ridges, tropical moisture being pulled in from the East Pac. You can see the Pacific monsoonal trough is in full effect, and all that's just getting funneled in over the Caribbean. But from what I've been seeing and looking at different charts, all this here as well as our little embedded upper level low that's just kind of sitting and spinning out there, we're still seeing some shear. We're still seeing some shear down there, and I don't think there's going to be any major development out of it. I wasn't sold on the GFS's depiction. The one thing I wanted to communicate with the GFS is simply the fact that the GFS was on board for something developing. GFS loves to go worst case scenario, and I mean, in the right conditions, we could absolutely see a major hurricane out there. Is that the forecast? No, not right now, no. And the break in continuity that we saw with the GFS in terms of spinning something up here and moving it up like this makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I took a lot of time to see why that happened because I had a bad feeling that after reporting on it, some people were going to jump in and start saying how, hyping the GFS or one way or another, So I wanted to take a very, very deep, thorough investigation as to why the GFS suddenly made the huge change, and it makes a lot of sense. The upper air pattern across much of North America and the northern eastern Pacific, for that matter, has changed up. And as a result, the GFS changed up as well. And, GFS really hasn't been doing that bad. Yes, it was going worst case scenario with that major hurricane, but all of our models, especially today now with the icon and the euro reaching far enough out, all our models do have a second spin, a second low pressure forming up out there and moving this way. So GFS was on point. It's just because of the steering flow that it had in its initial runs or when it first started showing that hurricane forming up, that's the reason why it went, guns a-blazing. I'm going to call for a Cat 4 moving through Cuba and then Ian 2.0 going for Florida. Tammy is a zombie storm. I mean, yeah, somewhat. I'll say somewhat. Need to watch 92 EP. That could be another problem for Mexico. Yeah, I'm actually a little more concerned that with this trough coming in way back here, that this could possibly push into our Caribbean. You can see that the subtropical jet is troughing way down to the south, and we have this front. I mean, yeah, technically the polar front jet also beginning to trough down across the Intermountain West, northern northwest region. So I think what's going to end up happening, and the track guidance also reflects this even more, we're going to see it sucked back in. Euro's calling for it, Canadians calling for it. The icon, not yet. It has its stationary. GFS is calling for it. A lot of our model guidance is trending that it's going to get picked up and swooped back into the Caribbean, and I think that's the one we really want to watch for. That's the one that GFS had highlighted for a significant amount of growth, a significant amount of development, and we have very favorable conditions down there. Once this dry air can get up out of there, once we get that ridge out of there, it will be fairly favorable conditions. I'm not going to say solid conditions, amazing conditions, but, number one, the hot water. We've said that enough. It's like a triple dead horse at this point. But we'll also have some very good upper-level divergence, a really good anti-cyclone positioning itself over there. And the big thing is going to be, how much shear is going to be out there. With the steering pattern changing as much as it is, instead of it being more amplified, but more so zonal at this point, is that going to allow for more wind shear to come across a la El Nino or just in general? Or is it going to stay shear free? Because with a more meridional pattern, what was going to happen, which is why the GFS had such a huge storm going on out there, I'm actually going to use my big pen this time. We had a trough and a ridge, like so. When the GFS was predicting that big old hurricane was going to form up in the Caribbean, that was a close one. Down here, the reason it was doing that is because we were going to have all this upper level anticyclonic flow out there fueling the storm, coupled with the low level hot temperatures, all this moisture coming up to the north like it is over the eastern portion of the Caribbean, and it made sense. And then as this trough came through and moved off to the east, it was going to pick it up and move it up like this, like clockwork, typical. Now that we're changing things and the GFS is predicting our trough is going to be much weaker and our ridge, or our subtropical jet, I should say, is going to be running like this, it seems like there's not only going to be a lot more shear out there, but we're going to have more prevailing easterly winds punching storms through Central America. So, it's definitely, we got to see what happens. Because, again, and I'm not throwing shade. I'm not trying to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but if there's one thing that we really need to start paying attention to is our upper level dynamics and what's coming out of the west. And when I say coming out of the west, I mean way out over here. off the chart in this case. We're talking like Pacific, North America, anything out over the Central Pacific in terms of our MGO. See what El Nino's doing, which we're actually going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk El Nino because we're right on the cusp of going into November, which is the final 30 days of hurricane season. So very soon, this channel is going to be evolving. Very soon, a lot of the material that I cover is going to be evolving. For those of you tuning in from the Caribbean, we're still going to keep talking about you guys. I'm not going to just suddenly disappear and, because we have winter storms over the United States, I'm just going to forget about you guys. But like we got to change with the times, and the channel is going to evolve as well. These talks are still going to go on, but they're going to be different to an extent. So, yeah. So anyways, this is where we stand right now. We have a couple of different embedded vortices out there. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at some track guidance. Like I said, I have to move kind of fast through this, but here's our latest track guidance, and you can see that even though a lot of them are still thinking that it's going to just kind of do a loop-de-loop like we were seeing with Tammy. I don't know what it is with storms spinning around. It's been happening a lot this year, but here you have it. You look, and if you go back to 12 Zulu, as a matter of fact, you see an enormous change in the depictions of the models. So here's 12Z, still doing the weird combing effect. Looks like a claw reaching out at Central America, parts of El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras. What is this? Guatemala, excuse me, I almost forgot. Pardon me. It's been a while since I forecasted for Centam. And then you go back to 18Z and look at the difference. We're starting to see all of them popping them through. A lot of them don't think it's going to make it through. Even the halves A and B models are now pushing it across Central America right into that same general area. So this is what, if you can imagine, this is the Southern Caribbean right here. I know it's not pictured on the map, but that's why I'm drawing it in for you guys. That's where we could possibly see, again, TD21 that came over into the Pacific, come back to where it started initially and try to redevelop again. So, Robert, you mentioned Tammy was a zombie storm. This is a zombie storm. This thing, you put it down and it just wants to keep coming back. So, we got to watch this because I'll show you in the models here in a second. We'll go GFS first. We'll get it out of the way, nip it in the bud. So you come through time, and there goes our upper low. This is that upper low feature I showed you guys on water vapor, trying to get a little bit of spinach from it. I don't think that's going to be a tropical system. I mentioned in my video a tropical low, but that's mainly just because of the source region. It's coming out of the tropics, so it's going to have tropical characteristics with it, albeit it's not going to develop into a consolidated cyclone. And then, you go through time, and I actually do agree with what the GFS is doing right there. I do. I agree with this. I do think we're going to see another area of low pressure spin up. But as you can see, we have high pressure across the United States, especially along the eastern half, spanning into the central Atlantic. And as such, we have the prevailing easterly starting to take effect out here. We're having that huge, large-scale gradient interaction, just like we are now. It looks really bizarre because we have our air masses punching each other in the face like this. That's where we're getting that long stream of moisture from. But that's all it is just, it's a gradient. It's an interaction between a different... Yeah, I don't know why I lost my train of thought, but we just have two interacting air masses creating that huge area of boundary, I guess you could say, influence or phenomena, and it's taken off, and that's why we have that huge stream of moisture not only going up to where Tammy is, but also coming out of the equator. Should we start preparing in the Cayman Islands? No. Don't start preparing. Simply just make sure that if you have anything to prepare, that you keep it close by. And I know that sounds like a little bit of a conundrum, but I'm not saying get ready because something's coming. I'm saying just because we're looking at things, just make sure that if you do have anything that needs preparing, just have it on reserve. Not saying we need to buckle down and get ready to hit the books, but just to be on the safe side. But no preparations in terms of imminently or, any kind of significant threat as of right now. Even for Jamaica, I'm getting a little frustrated because, and maybe I'm once again letting myself get emotional about this, but, this is what I was talking about with Hurricane Otis, the live stream. I think it was on Monday or maybe it was Wednesday. I can't remember. This week is blurred together, but, I'm once again hearing the hyperbole, and it's becoming a bit discouraging because every day on my Instagram or on social media or on news in general, I see more and more footage and more before and after pictures, and I hear about the death toll going up in Mexico, and I'm getting tired of hearing different reports, I'm not going to say anything specifically, but This thing down here in the Caribbean that's going to drift toward Jamaica, I'm hearing the same type of description for that thing as we heard with Otis. And it's like, you guys are really blurring the lines here, and you're truly hyping. Like, you really are. I mean, it looks like we could see some formation. In my personal opinion, it's going to be a stretch to get a big Vince out of this. We could see it squeak into tropical storm strength, but you look at all the models, even the GFS for that matter, just the one that wants to run and gun for the hills, it seems like doesn't really have anything coming out of there. You have a little bit of a weak spin, and then, yeah, that's it. You look at the Euro, as a matter of fact, at 12 Zulu, and the Euro doesn't really have anything strong coming from it either. 1,007 millibar low. And I know that we have been missing the mark in terms of intensity. I do realize that. But if you look at where it's forming up out there and we switch over to our upper level dynamics, as I mentioned, look at all that shear still being induced by our upper low that's out there. That's that same thing we talked about on water vapor satellite. You can see all that shear coming down. And it's going to try to interact. You can see that there's a little bit of a weak anticyclone still in place out there, but we have so much shear still that I think is going to keep this thing lopsided. It's going to struggle. It could look like a Philippe or a Rena out there. It's not going to be anything crazy. And going back in time to we'll even go live. This is where we're sitting right now, and you can see that, over the next couple days, we do get a little bit of this shear up out of there as that upper low traverses towards the southeast United States, the Bahamas. But as it stands right now, we have decent shear across that area. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing that's going to stop a storm from developing. But I don't think we're going to see anything life-threatening or dangerous. That's just not the case. And plus, we have to remember that if you'll go to the satellite, if you go here, look at how much thunderstorm activity and how much rainfall is down there as it is. I mean, do you really think that adding a little bit more rain is going to change the big picture? You guys have already, Barbados, you just mentioned a little bit ago, Malachi, that you guys have been seeing a whole bunch of rainfall down there across the islands, on a continuous and a persistent basis. And it's like, unless we had something big like an actual hurricane, like another Tammy or, God forbid, stronger than that, then I'd understand saying, okay, we got to prepare, we got to get ready. But right now, I don't see anything on my radar that warrants me telling people in Jamaica, in the Cayman Islands, in, Dominican Republic and Cuba that this could be dangerous. That's getting we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But that's just me. Gripe over. I'm sorry about that. Like I said, I'm not trying to, it is what it is. I get the concept, but at the same time, we have so many different examples of what needs to be emphasized and what doesn't need to be emphasized as much. Models are not that good. It's likely there will be a tropical storm with heavy rain. Category 1 to 3 would not be a surprise. Water is hot. For this first system, no PM, I don't think so. The one that National Hurricane Center has finally highlighted, I don't think we're going to see a hurricane out of it. I really don't think so. The second one, I could see that. The second one, especially with energy coming out of the East Pac, there definitely needs to be a little more eyes on that just to be on the safe side. Shania, no, I'm not saying preparing the Caymans. Earlier I was mentioning that if you guys know that you have plans or any preparations that you just haven't, thought about in a long time, dust off those preparation plans and just make sure that if you do need to put them in place, that they're ready, just in case. Because there's warnings, there's watches, there's advisories. This would be like a watch before the watch. I know that sounds silly, but when a watch hits, that means conditions are there and the warning will go out for when you guys need to shelter in place. In this case, when I say a watch for the watch, we do have some things trying to come together, and if we get the conditions to line up, then maybe we can see a storm form, and then maybe we'll have to go into a full-fledged watch because something might be coming, and then obviously you guys know the warning. That means things are imminent. NHC and forecasters are sounding the warning signals. I would heed it. It might be weak until we see something. NHC sometimes leaves a yellow circle for a week. Oh, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this first thing coming out of there, I don't really predict anything's going to come of it, anything big anyways. The second round at the beginning of November, that's when I would imagine we could see maybe a little more action down there as conditions realign and we get a little bit of extra juice down there and the shear coming away. So yeah, you guys are definitely seeing a lot of bad thunderstorm activity out there because of that interaction between the high height center here, the subtropical high over the Atlantic, and then this bad boy that's been hunkered down over the southeast and the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean for a while. And if you look at this and I draw the wind flow around these two features, you have convergent boundaries right in all through here. All of this is just an area of disturbed influence and interaction between this ridge, and then a very weak little upper low vortice that's just continuing to further exasperate things. I know this is a very cluttered drawing. I'm trying to do to the best of my ability, but you're kind of just, those islands are definitely sandwiched in between everything that's going on. This whole channel of moisture right in through here is a direct response. I should have used a better color. This whole column of moisture here is a direct result of these two ridges right there. What's happening is we have this breakaway area of polar energy that's now modified into something a lot more lower latitude. And then you also have this ridge pulling moisture up out of the monsoonal trough in the Atlantic, that ITCZ area. And then you have this ridge butting up against all that moisture, and the dry air intrusion is only helping to activate even more thunderstorm activity. And then on top of that, this ridge is feeding off of moisture down over the East Pac monsoonal trough. So it's just a whole channel of moisture and instability, because you have very stark contrast between, how do I put it without losing you guys? Let's say, for instance, you have warm, moist, tropical air on one side, then you have continental, tropical, dry air that was once polar air because of the nor'easter that came through a while ago. It's very weird, but essentially, you guys are stuck under a pathway for all things thunderstorms. That's why. And they're pretty fierce out there right now because of all the different interactions we have going on between multiple air masses, for that matter. And it doesn't help. We have a lot of good vorticity towards the highest point in the environment that's helping to keep these things around much longer. So I hope that answers your question. Very long-winded. Basically, this is a whole channel. It's like a fire hose of just getting all that moisture and instability coming up to the north and then riding around the apex of our Atlantic ridge right here. That's the main reason why. But all right, real quick, because I can see we're running out of time already. It's 27 minutes into the stream. What else have we not covered? This was from my video earlier. Let's go to... So I do want to show you guys the probabilities. I didn't have time to wait a little bit longer and get the probabilities and the ensembles for the Euro in before having to shoot my video. So we'll have to double check that, or not double check that. Well, we can go ahead and look at them now. What's the chance of 92E hitting Belize as a tropical storm? Venetia, that's a very valid question. We're going to have to wait and see, because all of our models do think it's going to traverse Central America and end up back in its original source position. But we need to see exactly what our upper air pattern wants to do, because I noticed that the GFS was the one bringing it up, and it made sense synoptically and large-scale speaking, but now a lot of the models are thinking that there's going to be a prevailing easterly steering flow out across the majority of the Caribbean, and with that is probably going to be higher chances of wind shear. So, you know, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a toss-up right now. It's kind of a toss-up. We're still so far out. I know we're at the very end of October, but we still have to wait until at very minimum November 2nd or 3rd to see what happens. So here we are now, 4 days out, 5 days out. You can see that we do end up getting back up into that 50 percentile for tropical development, at least tropical depression formation there. I haven't looked at tropical storm. Let me see if that's still highlighting something. Yeah, see, no, that's not. That's very interesting, though. I didn't see that earlier. Look at that, guys. But see, this is what I'm talking about. Even the Euro has backed off quite a bit in terms of seeing tropical storm formation out of that thing bubbling up to the south of Jamaica and our Cayman Islands. So I wouldn't really start sweating it at all just yet. We'll have to see if we get a low spinning up. The shear is definitely going to slow it down in comparison to what we saw Tropical Depression 21 do. 21 had a lot better of an environment overhead, and we had the hot water, so it was a 1-2 punch, had upper level support, lower level support. In this case, it's a lot more lower level and marginal favorability in the upper level, so you know, we got to play around with it, but that's new. This is new, and I was not tracking that. We're actually up to a 30% chance of tropical storm development, according to the European model now, right off the coast of, like you were asking, Belize, Honduras, Nicaragua. So that's interesting. That I didn't look at this. I didn't have time to, so I'm glad that we brought this up. Tropical depression, if I'm not mistaken, I did glance at this, and yeah, look at that. Now we're getting a little higher. Look at that. On November 5th, we're all the way up to that's about 60 to 65% chance of tropical depression formation. And to believe it or not, we all roasted a lot. I do the same thing sometimes, but that's exactly what the GFS was calling when it went completely gung-ho instead of throwing a hurricane out there. It was calling for the formation of whatever this is, and it does look to be the remnants of TD21, now currently 92E, and then back to what was once TD21, so zombified storm 2-3 times over. And the European model today, as a matter of fact, does a great job of highlighting that. We'll use the Euro specifically. We'll go over there for 12Z. So here's Central America, Caribbean. We'll use 850 millibar winds. So you look out there over the Eastern Pacific, and you could see a very clear spin highlighting 92E right there. And the problem with this is the Euro has been trending that as the trough over the northwest comes down even further to the south, watch how that circulation spins back. Pretty much exactly. It's very bizarre. I've never seen storms do this before. I really have not, guys. I promise you that. You can't make this up either, but you can tell we have a very strong frontal system because look at the Tehuantepec winds blowing straight out of the north. That is a clear indication we used to use during our synoptic analysis back in the Air Force to determine how far south of a cold plunge, how far south of a trough, how far south of a high pressure we're getting. And you can see those Tehuantepec winds blowing hard. So it's very clear that we have frontal passage, or at least an upper front, passing through Central America and Mexico, and that's what's going to take 92E and push it right back over. Oh, this model run actually has it flopping even back behind that. And then we get a secondary low spinning up. So, I don't know. At the surface, it definitely showed it going across. If I switch back to the 10-meter winds, you can see this thing wandering over. And then there goes our secondary low. So very, very interesting. What also could be happening, because I know at 0Z, it had to go all the way across. There you have it. Yeah, it goes all the way across, reemerges, and then forms back up. 12Z, maybe I didn't look at this. I thought I did. Or maybe I just looked at it and it wasn't fully populated. But then in this case, we have that strong frontal surge out of the north. And then as a result, we start getting a lot more spinach right there. Big old low pressure center right there. And then once again, unfortunately, this is going to be very, very bad weather for everybody down there because look at this huge interaction there once again. You have all these winds coming off of the Atlantic, all this tropical air mass blowing straight into this very bona fide polar air mass. So there's the tail end of the front, so it makes sense that's where we could possibly see a low pressure try to deepen into something tropical, but then you also have to take into account that what we're seeing right now on the satellite between those two boundaries, all this, whatever you want to call it, this stream of moisture thunderstorm activity, it looks like the Euro is predicting that that line is going to move further to, I lost it. Is it still, no, this is earlier. That line is going to move further to the east. And then you can see, yeah, before anything does spin up, it pushes it into Central America before it could really deepen down, and then it emerges on the opposite side. So, very, very interesting. I definitely did not see this earlier, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and look at the Euro ensembles. I don't think I got a chance to look at those. I looked at the 0Z, not the 12Z. I have the 0Z in my video. Let's see. So, yeah, the Euro ensembles backed off even more on that first system. And then doesn't really do much at all with the second one. Doesn't give the second one a chance. The second one looks like it's going to collide into Central America. So, I don't know. Honestly, we're in such a bizarre steering pattern at almost every level of the environment that it's very difficult to pinpoint precisely what's going to happen. Now, I know we're not going to have time to look at our GFS ensembles like we always do, so what I'm going to do is use these mean sea level pressure ensembles, since this will populate all the way through. I don't know why it takes so long to get the actual ensembles from GFS. Let's see, maybe they are in, because I noticed we had 384 hours on that panel. Nope, they're not in yet, so we're going to use the mean sea level pressure. There we go. Does anybody else have any other questions, though? It looks like the chat has gone silent, or usually by now I'm seeing a lot more commentary. But if not, then we're going to get closer and closer to wrapping up the video so we can go out there and start the movie. I think somebody asked about that earlier. Let me see. A little off topic, but is the Five Nights at Freddy's movie good? I don't know, Lucas. We're going to find out here in a minute. What is a nor'easter, and is this something to possibly hit Florida, or is it called that due to being in the Northeast? So, Samuel, you hit the nail on the head. Nor'easter is exactly as the name implies. It's a northeast, not superstorm, but it's a very, very aggressive, low-pressure winter-style storm or fall system that tends to form up, and it could either come across the United States and then really explosively develop. That's where you get the terminology bombogenesis for storms riding up the East Coast, up into the Northeast, and then out into the Atlantic. But no, not a chance to hit Florida. We could always see the tail end of it in a very good frontal boundary or a cold boundary coming through here, but we won't actually get the brunt of a nor'easter. Now, during El Nino, we could have lower pressures move across the south, like we saw with our tornado outbreak about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Again, the dates are blurring together. But that's to be determined. We haven't seen any indications at all that that's going to happen. So honestly, it's El Nino is kind of almost shut down, and that's one thing I have that written down here. I want to conclude with that. But anyways, here's our 18Z ensembles. So GFS honestly gives a bit more confidence that that upper low is going to develop a surface reflection. And then there goes 92E pulling out over the Caribbean once again. And then we get development of whatever that is coming up to the south. And yeah, so I mean, the ensembles are still very consistent. I really want to know, I got to watch the pattern closely as to why the GFS keeps bullseyeing something wandering in out of the main development region and trying to develop there. I know that there's some upper level vorticity. I just want to tell you that the rest of my family is safe, but I've lost everything. Well, I mean, I say this as gently as possible. That's a huge blessing. I'd rather keep family and replace belongings versus vice versa, keep belongings and never have the opportunity to replace family, because family's flesh and blood at the end of the day. Materialistic things, you can't take them with you when you pass on. Family is going to go with you, whatever it is that your preference or beliefs incorporate. How's Florida lightning capital of the world, but we barely have lightning? I need to speak to the manager. That's just because when we have our very violent summertime thunderstorms and the sea breeze systems that pop up during the day, it gets crazy out there. I mean, you have lightning shows for hours upon hours upon hours. So anyways, I mean, you look at the ensembles, and GFS still thinks that there's a probability we could see a channel of opening or an opportunity open for something to form up and move off to the north. And that's quite a lot of ensembles, too. And it's been trending like that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We have about 18 of the GFS members, 19. One of them little squirted in there. I saw that. So, I mean, we have about 35, 40% of our GFS ensemble still thinking we could see something come out of there. So it's worth monitoring. Anyways, let's go ahead and start wrapping up the video or the live stream. I want to go over to our ENSO forecast. Because I noticed something that's a little concerning. If I can find it. I don't think this is it. All right, because I'm already over time and we're almost 40 minutes into the live stream, let me go over to weather models. Maybe weather models will have it in their model lab. Let's see. Snow analysis, lightning, max, HMOM, blah, blah, blah. Strong steering winds, ocean heat, monthly, daily. Let's see, there's blend of models. I don't see anything El Nino on here or ENSO related. What a bummer. Daily probability, temperature percentile. I would not be surprised to see a low-end cyclone over west coast of Florida in November. Cyclone season ends 30 November, not 1 November. Yeah, no, I agree. GFS definitely has us wanting to pay attention to something, and Euro's been on and off about it. But anyways, guys, before we close out the live stream, the big thing is, let me see if I can find a probabilistic strength fork. Oh, here we go. Let's see. All right, so All right, never mind. This is going to look like entire gibberish to you, so we're not going to use it. I could try to explain it, but that's not going to work. Let's see what else we have here. Sea surface temp anomalies. I want to find a chart that'll help you guys see exactly what it is that I was looking at earlier. I forgot exactly where I looked at it, but I saw something that essentially mentions that we're still supposedly in a very high-end El Nino right now, even though it's almost non-existent in terms of the conditions we're actually seeing out there. Enjoy the movie and fan, bro. It was great listening to you while making dinner. Of course, Gabriel. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it, bro. We got to see if we can try to get a workout in tomorrow. Hurricane season ends, although cyclones happen a lot in the winter. Early night tonight in Antigua, it's raining like cats and dogs. Yeah, you guys are going to continue to see rain out there for a while. Bad thunderstorms, bad rainfall. Because of the situation that we have in place, the large-scale pattern that's just trapping all that moisture and that column of increased shower activity just moving up to the north, right over top of you guys from out of the equator area. Have you ever been tropical cyclones after November 30th? If so, did they still make advisory and stuff for it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and then PM beat me to it. But, yeah, that's a thing. It has happened before. It's just a matter of the general public doesn't pay any attention because hurricanes are synonymous with hurricane season. So, subliminally, and I myself have done this when I haven't been reporting on here or when I was working in Western Conus. When hurricane season turns off, I just kind of, blockers are on. I don't pay attention at all. But, no, it's a very possible thing. But anyways, guys, I'll draw a little bit of a little depiction here before we wrap up using all this white space here. So if you imagine we're in October, November, December, January, February, March, April, and then May of 2024. There's the turning point. This is 2023. Wow, I do apologize. I hope you guys can see that. And then here's 2024. And the graph that I saw, there's a neutral phase. This blue down here would be La Nina, and then the red up here would be El Nino. And what I saw on the chart earlier that I mentioned is we're supposed to be like, oh, that's not the color I want to use. No! Oh, God, wait, no, can I undo that? There we go. That was close. My work of art almost disappeared. All right, so where we stand right now, this is what we're supposed to see as we go towards December time. We're going to see a little bit of an increase in El Nino, and then this is actually what they have projected to happen as we get close to the start of hurricane season next year. So I'm going to head out by, all right, Punky, the mixed dog, we'll see you again. God bless you. But this is what I'm interested in tracking as we go through time. I know this is an extremely crude, almost kindergartenish looking drawing on the screen here, but essentially what a lot of our oscillation forecast models, long-range climatology models are predicting is have a fun Friday night, Friday fright night. Weatherman, Nazario, Carmen, have a great evening. We'll see you again on Monday. Unless something big pops off over the weekend, guys, you know the drill. So next hurricane season, as we get ready to close out this one, next hurricane season is going to have us all on edge, all on high alert. Because if we have a repeat of the very hot temperatures across the board for the entirety of the Atlantic and a neutral, even a neutral phase, we don't need La Nina for conditions to markedly improve out there for tropical cyclone formation. We just need a neutral phase. And if we go from an El Nino to a neutral phase as we open up the hurricane season and then stay there or, God forbid, wander into a La Nina, that we could have a totally different hurricane season on our hands next year. So you best believe that we're going to try to stay as far ahead of that as possible and start looking at preliminary forecasts for the season. Not the season itself, but I should say for the oscillating patterns, not only El Nino, La Nina, but just with the North Atlantic, the MJO, etc. Because, gosh, if we had this much activity in what was supposed to be a very quiet El Nino-style hurricane season, imagine what the possibilities would be like if we were in a favorable setup all season long, less wind shear in the Caribbean, less dry air out there, at least during the second half of the season, less dusty dry air. That would be really bad. That'd be really bad. We would essentially take the big hurricanes that we saw, Nigel, Lee, who else? Idalia, even though I know she was close to home. all the big hurricanes out there, even the ones we saw in the East Pac, Hillary, Lydia, dare I say it, Otis, what was the name of it? Hova, I think it was, the J storm. If we were to take those conditions and translate it over to the Atlantic side, that's a recipe for disaster. That's what I'm going to start looking at as we get ready to close out this hurricane season. If Atlantic remains warm all winter, next year will be another busy year. El Nino is not functioning as normal as we expect. No. And if we wander out of El Nino and into a more neutral Enzo phase, that's only going to open up the possibilities of seeing earlier development in the likes of August and September. Like last year, 2022, we had all of our big stuff forming in the Caribbean again and again and again. You take those strong storms and you essentially relocate them into a more dangerous position. So we'll have to see what happens there. Is it possible that the Caribbean, that a storm is capable of a storm is capable of a storm? A storm is always capable of a storm. No, I'm just kidding. There is the possibility of multiple storms developing out there. We just have to wait and see what happens as we roll into November. Zeta 2005 was in late December. Yep, I remember that. JJ 614. Remember Hurricane Lenny, November 19th, came out east from Jamaica and brushed the eastern Caribbean. El Nino is not happening at the moment, more like La Nina with Santa Ana winds. Will be a hot week next week. El Nino doesn't have Santa Ana winds. Well, I mean, that's probably because of how hot it is out over this neck of the woods. Because all of our charts, all of our data, all the anomaly maps that I've been looking at to make sure whether or not we've wandered out of an El Nino to a La Nina or anything like that, there's still full-fledged El Nino. It's just the phenomena out there is not behaving itself. And, I think it's just throwing all of our semi-permanent pressure systems completely out of whack. Because I know what you're talking about in terms of the Santa Ana setup. I think it's really dorking everything up, unfortunately. Thank you, Kathy. I hope not. November 19th is my birthday. I don't want to hear about possible hurricanes on my birthday. Brooke, as of right now, for the 19th, absolutely not. We can't even see that far out into the future right now, so don't even sweat it, hon. Please don't sweat it. Don't start sweating right now. I really didn't buy into what the GFS was predicting over the last few days. I just thought it was neat to notice that it actually had some of the best consistency we've seen all year long. So, yeah. As far as your birthday goes, by the way, I'm going to have to make a note of that. The November 19th, I'll remember that. So we can all wish you a happy birthday, depending on what day that falls on. Let's see. Are we going to do a Tropics talk on the 19th? Let's see. Well, it'll still be a Tropics talk. Oh, no, that's a Sunday. So maybe we'll do like a quick little shout out somewhere for you on the 19th. Did Brazil and South America ever get hurricanes? I've never seen them if they do happen. So that's, I'm not sure exactly. I feel like they do, but because they're high up in the southern hemisphere latitudes, they probably don't get as much. That was one thing I was talking to somebody about not too long ago. It was very interesting looking at the way the pattern changes just because you go to the opposite end of the earth, how everything goes backwards, literally spins backwards. You have to draw things backwards. I'm sure it's a possibility, but it'd be very difficult because of where they would have to spin up. The dynamics could be very different from what we see out here or just close to the equator in general. Because when you think about it, you have to go way down, or I should say way up, upside down in the southern hemisphere. So it's kind of like the northeast for us down there. Just flip the earth upside down. Brazil gets tropical cyclones. It's where, yeah, exactly. By the way, Tropical Tidbits has the ocean heat anomaly charts. Do they go out that far? Actually, wait, I'm a dork. I just realized we can kind of see what our climate models are calling for right now. Let's see. Let's go large scale, North Atlantic, thermodynamics. Here we go. That's right. Good call. Good call, Diva Jefferson. I forgot about all this. No one ever checks on this. There's December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So, I mean, it's definitely not looking as hot as it did this year. But you know what's one thing that is concerning is it looks like the CFS model is thinking we're definitely going to go neutral, if not La Nina next year. So that definitely just brought my antenna up. Because look at down there in the East Pac. You can definitely see in the earlier parts of the climate models, that's definitely El Nino. And the problem is we just have this huge extension of near the same temperatures across most of the Atlantic. And then, yeah, look at that. It looks like especially the Caribbean is going to stay hot, which is not good, because if we lose that El Nino, that's going to be open season for all of our folks down there. And I saw your comment earlier, Mick and Marley. I definitely want to stay on YouTube all the way through the winter and the spring and go full force into next year's hurricane season. Yeah, look at that. This is for May, June, and July, and it's going to be hot down there. Shucks. I see your comment, JJ614, and that's kind of why I'm quiet right now. Because if you guys look, if you look closely, like let's go back here, November. I know this is November, December, January, but it'll still do us the favor of giving us a little bit of insight. If you guys remember, we had an Otis in our neck of the woods. It's just the reason we didn't really worry too much about it is because it didn't hit anything. And you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Lee. Lee came up like this, and notice how our hottest anomaly temps were there. And then what's scary about this is you go towards the opposite end of the run. Notice how all those hottest temperatures migrate into our Caribbean, and we lose the El Nino. Because if you guys remember, all the way through pretty much June, July, even into most of August until the very mid to latter part of August, and even during the likes of Idalia, we still had some El Nino shear down there. It's just Idalia formed up to the north of all that, and so she managed to work her way through. And even then, I remember there were still some moments where shear was impacting her, and she could kind of stay away from major hurricane strength until she got well into the Gulf of Mexico. That has me concerned already. That definitely has me concerned already, which is another reason why I wish people would stop hyping what's happening out there and, keep the hyperbole for when it matters, because that looks... Yeah, all I'm going to say is that just doesn't look good. That definitely doesn't look good. With all the climate change and other beach areas in danger of being in harm's way, Los Angeles and north up the Pacific and more northeastern areas, it's definitely a possibility. We would need some very dramatic changes in our steering flow to be determined. I know that there's a lot of articles coming out now after Otis that are mentioning that rapid intensification of our cyclones, especially right before landfall, is likely to happen a lot more often. We saw it last year. We saw it this year. So time is going to tell. We'll have to continue to monitor this. We'll definitely have to continue to monitor this. But yeah, a La Nina year would definitely be bad news for the Caribbean and Florida if ocean temperatures remain this hot. No, you're right. Yeah, we're almost there, though. That's the only reason I want to start touching on stuff like this, just to kind of take a glance at what it is we should be looking out for. I'm not making any real early preliminary predictions, Robert, but the reason I bring this up is as we get ready to transition out of hurricane season internally here, I'm not going to broadcast it, but I'm already going to start watching, because this is the most hands-on I've been in a hurricane season in my entire weather career, or whatever you want to call it. I've done tropical analysis, but I've never been this invested in everything. And as invested as I've been, that's kind of why it's, I'm already thinking. So 2024 leeward's bad. I'm not going to go that far out and say yes or no, but it definitely has me watching. That has me concerned. But again, this is worse than the GFS. We're looking at next year. So, yeah, and that's another thing, too, the dust field. We'll have to see exactly how that takes shape. You never know, because if those hot temperatures relocate, I forget the name of the winds over Africa, but you definitely might not see as much of the dust flow coming off of Africa, because it may change the way our upper-level winds out there drive the dust off of Africa. I know 9 times out of 10 it's going to happen either way because of the way their monsoon sets up and the convergent flow out of the north and the south, but I'm just mentioning with how our ocean temps and all that and the currents can dork with wind flow flow, especially large-scale monsoonal wind flow, up in the air, big toss-up. That's all I'm going to say. I saw someone mention it earlier, and I'm in big trouble. It's 54 after. I should have logged out almost 30 minutes ago. Alrighty, folks, a little bit of a smaller crowd tonight. Thank you all for tuning in this evening. We'll talk to you very soon. I'll see you again tomorrow for a full Weather Center segment. No live stream as of right now. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a live stream tomorrow, and then there's going to be no video on Sunday. Sunday is once again my day of rest. I'm not going to use the S word because a lot of folks thought I was actually calling Sunday the S word, and I know it's not. It's just my little slogan that I call it because I disconnect from, content creation and all that stuff. So we'll talk to you guys again soon. If any additional questions come up, always drop me a line on my Instagram page or just leave me a comment in the comments section of either my live stream or the live video that I put out earlier at 6 p.m. It's been wonderful chatting with you guys. There's still a lot to cover as we go through November because it looks like at least the first half of the month could be a little bit more active than what we're used to seeing. So to be determined. Thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday night. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll get back to you soon about our fundraiser. We got to get it started soon. But in the meantime, folks, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.